Good afternoon, my friends and family. It feels so good to be here. I was worried that I would not be able to make it. My flight was delayed and there was running through airports, and I'm here. And it feels so good to be surrounded by Vincent's friends and family. I have found over time that Vincent's friends and family almost always feel almost immediately like my own. How I miss hearing Vincent's voice on the phone. His slow, deliberate voice saying, "Hello, my sister, daughter, niece, and friend. Hello." That's how he greeted me on the phone every time. And that is how he made me feel loved, like a long-lost sister, daughter, niece, and friend. I lost my own father when I was fairly young, and Vincent's warm, fatherly, gentle, strong, and steady way with me filled a void in me that I did not even know I had. And so I'm incredibly grateful for Al Josie and Rachel Harding, who opened their hearts to me too, and I want to say thank you to them, to Al Josie and to Rachel, for inviting me to share in the celebrations of Vincent's life and for welcoming me into their hearts. Today I want to share in my own imperfect way and pay tribute to the unsentimental, unconditional love that Vincent shared with me, shared with countless others, shared with the wide community of advocates and activists and teachers, young and old and in between, who dedicated their lives to justice and to building the beloved community that so many have lived for and died for and dreamed of. I'm not certain that I fully understood what true love meant before meeting Vincent Harding. I'm not talking about romantic love or parental love or the kind of love that is forged over time as friends come to know each other and care for each other in life's ups and downs. I'm talking about unsentimental, truly revolutionary love. I'm talking about the kind of love that transforms every encounter with another soul, the kind of love that holds the power to change our world. It is the kind of love that is unfailingly honest and direct, that is courageous and bold, but tender, patient, and compassionate too. It is a love that knows no boundaries, a love that views the man shuddering in his prison cell alone, racked by guilt over crimes he cannot even admit to himself, and the woman holding her child in an immigrant detention center, begging authorities not to deport them. Please, no. Do not send me back, no. As worthy of precisely the same respect, dignity, care, compassion, and honor as your own mother, your own father, daughter, niece, and friend. It is a love that extends to the prison guard too, to the construction worker, to the janitor, to the president of these United States, to the protesters on the streets of Ferguson shouting, "Don't shoot, don't shoot," as guns are trained on them and tear gas begins to flow. All of these people are worthy of love, equally worthy of love, care, and concern. That's the revolutionary piece I didn't fully get, hadn't fully experienced before I met Vincent. Because of Vincent, I now understand that it is a revolutionary love that makes you stand up when others are sitting down and speak up for the weak when others are silent, and to hold fast when you'd rather give up. A love that will endure all things and speak the unpopular truth, the inconvenient truth, but also a love that laughs and sings and leaps for joy. I had read about that kind of love, seen it in movies, talked about it on MLK Day, but Vincent showed me the path. He pointed out the fork in the road of my own consciousness, my own thinking and habits of being. And now there's no turning back, no other way for me to go. I know Vincent and so many others in this room are so far ahead of me, way, way, way down that path already, but at least I see the path now. And I know I'm headed in the right direction. I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't know much about Vincent Harding when I met him for the first time just a few years ago. I had not read his books, and his name was unfamiliar to me. When I mentioned to my sister that I was going to Denver and that someone named Vincent Harding had invited me to come speak about my book, The New Jim Crow, and participate in dialogues about building a movement to end mass incarceration, she shrieked over the phone. She said, "You're going to meet Vincent Harding? Oh my God, I'm so jealous." She proceeded to tell me that Vincent's book, There is a River, had changed her life. It was the reason she got a PhD in history and became an African-American history professor. She told me that in many ways he had revolutionized the field and had inspired countless young people to view the Black freedom struggle in entirely new ways. "You gotta read that book before you meet him," she told me. I told her I had a dozen books that I was supposed to be reading right now, and I put that on my list. She said, "No, you gotta read that one now." I didn't. Vincent greeted me at the airport as though I was a long-lost friend returning at last to a family I didn't know I had. His slow manner of speech forced me to slow down, something I was unaccustomed to doing, and pay attention, really listen. I soon became aware of the gift that he was sharing with me, a certain quality of loving presence. But he was not only sharing it with me, he was also sharing it with the wait staff at the restaurant, the crossing guard at the intersection, the students who greeted him with love and awe. And he told me he greatly appreciated my book, my research and my work challenging mass incarceration in this country, but what gave him the most hope and encouragement was that I was urging people not simply to end the system of mass incarceration that had decimated so many poor communities, especially communities of color, but that I was urging people to stand up for and with the least of these, those who have been despised, discarded, demonized, or abandoned. He said, "You have a lot of work to do, my daughter, sister, niece, and friend, and I want to support you as you travel this road." And he did. We began talking regularly over the phone, working on joint projects and participating in public dialogues and gatherings. Our private conversations always began with him asking me about my family, my husband, my 3 children, my mother, my sister, about how I was really feeling that day. These were not polite inquiries of common conversation. His questions were profoundly sincere, and he often expressed deep concern for how I was living my life. At the time, I was traveling constantly, speaking to large crowds, suffering from chronic exhaustion, racked by guilt about the amount of time I was spending away from my young children. I was often impatient and anxiety-ridden about the way the movement was going, the politics surrounding mass incarceration, and Vincent always listened carefully and then, after long pauses, would ask me hard, sometimes uncomfortable questions, or nudge me gently in a new way of being. I became aware that no one else in my life was asking me the kinds of questions he was asking, expressing concern for my whole being, my well-being, concern for me fundamentally as a human being. There was nothing sentimental about it, no pity, no praise, just caring, honest, unconditional support for my utterly imperfect self. And I don't know when it happened, there was no sudden epiphany, but at some point I finally got it. This is it. This is love, unsentimental love, revolutionary love. This is the kind of love I want to learn to show to others. This is the kind of love that every human being ought to be able to experience from those around them, in their communities, no matter who they are, where they came from, or what they've done. This is it. I can now say that I've read Vincent's books, and that I've met many of the people, young and old, who've been inspired by his writings and his humble and courageous work over the years. My favorite of his books is Martin Luther King, The Inconvenient Hero, where he challenges us to reject the watered-down, distorted version of Dr. King typically offered on MLK Day when we hear excerpts of the I Have a Dream speech played on the radio over and over again. He challenges us to remember who King was in 1967 and 1968, remembering that he was a revolutionary, someone who dared us to imagine in the power of unsentimental love, love that extends not just to your family, friends, or neighbors, but must extend, if we take our spiritual commitment seriously, to people living on the other side of the world in Vietnam, as well as the janitors right here at home. So I'm grateful for that book and for Hope in History, where he urges us to continue to teach the history of the Black freedom struggle to young people. And I'm so grateful for the work of the Veterans Hope Project and for the extraordinary contributions Vincent made to the movement decades ago, back when the old Jim Crow was brought to its knees. But what I will never ever forget, and what will carry me on in the months and years to come, when my faith gets weak and my patience for change wears thin, is my memory of what revolutionary love felt like, looked like, when I experienced it for the first time, not intellectually, but in real life, real time, with a wise, loving old man who spoke so slowly, with love, a man named Vincent Harding. I will remember that he never stopped working for revolution, that revolution of values, that beloved community rooted in unsentimental love. And when I think of him and hear his voice, I will remember the light he saw in me, saw in all of us. And that memory will keep me strong, keep me moving on. There is a tree in my neighborhood that I have named after Vincent. I go jogging by it almost every day. It is not the biggest tree or the most beautiful. In fact, it is utterly unremarkable to the untrained eye. But my eye has been trained. It is trained now to see the beauty and the divinity and what others find insignificant or unremarkable or even ugly. And so I now notice that this tree, which appears at first glance to be misshapen, is actually several small trees leaning into each other, branches twisted around each other, and at its base a small stream runs. A river runs through it. When I pass by this tree, I say silently, "Thank you, Vincent. You may rest now. The river still runs."